I just kept getting these messages that it was time to do, a heroic dose of mushrooms. And I didn't really even, I didn't have anybody that had done it. And so then I got online. I mean, anybody like close to me in my life that had done it. And I got online and started looking at some stuff that people were saying, like Terrence McKenna and stuff. But I didn't want to research it too much because I just wanted it to be my experience. And so, just kind of, I ended up doing, taking them and grinding them into a powder and shaking them in lemon juice for 20 minutes because I do tend to get a little bit sometimes queasy on mushrooms. So I had read that someone had done that, and it takes out the, like you strain out the mushrooms, although I didn't strain them out, but it takes out kind of like the nausea part and just the discomfort. So I did that. And luckily I had already kind of gone up and set my whole room up. All the blinds were closed. I had blackout curtains because it was only 4 p.m. And I had a playlist kind of on my phone ready to go. And then anyway, so I got in bed right after I took them, and they kicked in almost immediately. Like psychedelics just already started happening, and it didn't take long for it to get really intense. And so it was interesting because I had this playlist all planned, and the music just sounded awful to me. I couldn't figure out my phone, as you know, when you're on that large of a dose. Like, what is this thing? Like, And so I was able to turn it off at least. And then, so what happened because of that is I just started singing. And I hadn't read anything that, like, I guess people said that Terrence says somewhere to sing if you're uncomfortable. And it wasn't about that at all. Like, I hadn't read that, but I had just started taking voice lessons. And so I think there was some part of me that was like, need to start using your voice more. And like I had done some breath work where the voice really got activated, and I was just like kind of speaking in tongues, like all this voice stuff has been coming up. And so I just started singing. And what was interesting is the first kind of message that started coming through, and I felt like it wasn't me, like my brain singing. It was just something was singing through me, like giving me messages through my voice. That's what it felt like. Like, here's your downloads, and you're going to be singing your downloads tonight. And it was like about the earth. And so I started just to sing things about the earth. And it's like, no, it's not earth, it's Gaia. It's not, then it's like, no, it's not Gaia. It's a sound. It's a sound. And then I just started like from the really like the depths of my core, just singing like this deep, like I'm sure it was so loud, just singing, like my whole room was probably resonating with my voice of like just talking about like the resonance and the sound of things. And then it started going into like my voice started talking about how English is a spell. And I mean, we even use the word spell to spell a word. And it was like, it's a spell that we weave so well. And like, so the message was like, be careful because English can create spells. Like when, like whatever we're saying is, it's powerful. And I've always kind of known that. I've played around a lot with like, that speaking, our words have resonance, and you shouldn't talk smack about people or say things that you don't want to attract. But anyway, so that started going on for a while. And then it was like, I switched over to Spanish because I know enough Spanish, and then I started singing in Spanish. And then I realized like all the Icaros for like, if you're doing ayahuasca and even Wachuma, which is San Pedro, all of those songs are in Spanish because there's just such a lyrical thing to Spanish, but also like it's a truer language, according to what was coming through me, that it's a truer language and a more profound language. And that Sanskrit is also like a beautiful language that has more truth in it. And so like, I don't even really still know what to make of all that, other than I know that, English has so many words that can mean the same thing, or like the same word that can mean different things. And it can get very confusing, especially for foreigners when English isn't their first language. Yeah. And yeah, so I just tripped out on that whole English thing for a while. And then, so I had that crystal skull next to me, and it was really interesting because it was like, I mean, the psychedelics were going crazy at that point. And I was seeing a lot of skulls, and I don't know like what a lot of people see. And I've asked a couple friends, like if they've seen a lot of skulls, and everybody was like, I'm not sure. I don't know. But like the skulls, but they were very benevolent. It almost felt like Day of the Dead type skulls that were coming through, just multitudes of them. And, but then like when it would just get like a little bit too much for me, I would grab that cold crystal skull that was next to me on my bed, and it was really grounding for me. And I also had, I mean, and I'm saying this because in case anybody's listening that wants to do a journey, like these things were really helpful to me. I had a big, like, I always take water to bed with me. So I had this big, like, mason jar full of water. And instead of drinking it, I kept sticking my hand in it and then like putting it on my face. And I was like, okay, I'm here. I'm here. Just to kind of feel that I was here. But the water was really helpful because I think it was it was an element, that was something I could tap into. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I mean, I think in my 5 dried gram video, I think I was talking about I took like 3 or 4 like cold showers to kind of ground me, but like I mean, partly I was just profusely sweating too, but it was like the water just like everything else felt weird and the water felt grounding and safe, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. I think just there's something cleansing and purifying also about the element of water. So you were able to get up and walk to the shower during that time?
Well, I would say I time traveled to the shower. I don't really remember getting in it. It's like there was several times I just found myself in the shower. Um, like I don't know, it's just a weird um like about 50 different things happened in 50 different places in the matter of like an hour. And it's just like I would kind of be like off in this infinite headspace and then be like, oh, now I'm in the shower, and oh, this feels good. And then it would be like back in this infinite headspace and then be like, oh, now I'm in the kitchen flicking the light on and off. Cool, and and then
Oh
like,
yeah, I remember you
um,
saying that.
you know, yeah, and just like kind of random things that like I didn't know how I got there or why I was doing what I was doing. And um, it was much like you said how quickly it came on, and I did the lemon tech as well. um and I talk with a lot of people and suggest that, but that is a uh you know a, a thing to let people know, is like it's going to hit really hard when you do it that way. And you said you had your room all ready to go. I didn't, because my normal routine was to like just eat the mushrooms and then get everything ready. You're like, or often my routine is to like eat mushrooms, take a shower, then lay down, let them come on, like to kind of pass the time. And I didn't have anything ready to go, which I think like just kind of you know leads to that bad setting almost, because you're already in a frantic, chaotic, kind of trying to get things done state. And then when the mushrooms kick in, they just kind of perpetuate that. um so like you said, having everything ready and good to go, even when it does hit you as hard, is a better situation to be in. But um yeah, no, I definitely remember drinking water and showering. It was just a very like water's
Yeah.
it's an amazing substance.
The drinking seemed to kind of activate things too. I noticed every time I drank some water, when my hand wasn't in it and I was drinking it. But yeah, that kind of was like, it just kind of, I think it's good to kind of like change things up a little bit. And so what I was noticing also while I was still in my bed before I crawled to the bathroom at some point, is that like reality being really malleable. And it's just the only way I can describe it is like I felt like there was these messengers there that were telling me these things like, you think that reality is one thing, you think that like this is your life and that things just happen. And it's like, I was just using, like, in my mind I was getting the message of pushing your finger against something, and it just like a ripple of change, like all you have to do is push your finger at it and it's like and just turns into something else completely. And like I was really like just kind of tripping on that, and it was making me think of one of those um, the amanita mushrooms, the red and white ones. And I've actually one time when I was on San Pedro came across one of those under a tree, and it seemed like so luminescent to me, because when you're on San Pedro, like things light up and become even more amazing. Like all the plants are like talking to you. They're literally like, you feel like you could have a conversation with them. And I came upon this amanita mushroom, which I have never done in my life, and I've never seen one since in the wild. And like I started poking at it, and it was doing that same thing where it's like I'd poke it and it would jiggle, and then I would giggle like, oh my God, this is so funny. And then I would poke it again, and it's like we were having this conversation and giggling. And that's what it kind of felt like. I was like, oh my God, reality is like this giggle. Like you can just push it and it just like moves. And so like kind of understanding that we're so dense here, in this physical world, like we make it so solid, but it's really way less solid than we think it is. And that was kind of what was coming through for me a lot.